Hi, welcome back. I'm David Sussman here with Valcor. And as small business advocates going back 30 years here, one of the things that we focus on primarily is not just within the small business community, but the macro economy and how trends influence what's happening in the small business community. Obviously, what we're seeing happening right now with inflation, or whether or not lockdowns globally will impact supply chains or other issues as well, but also how efficiencies can be implemented. And we are starting to notice that there are going to be efficiencies and are efficiencies right now in new technologies, some new technologies the like we haven't seen in possibly 20, 25 years with the advent of the internet in specific sectors of blockchain and, yes, cryptocurrencies. So to talk about this, I'll pull it apart and put it back together again. We are delighted to have Brock Pierce join us. Brock is a trailblazing and rather colorful technologist and innovator. Brock has co-founded, advised, and funded over 100 companies. And as a pioneer in blockchain and digital currency, he's the founder of Blockchain Capital, and he co-founded EOS, which is a platform designed to allow developers to build decentralized apps, something we're going to be talking about, otherwise known as dApps, and how they can benefit the small business community and corporations at large as well. Many in the media over the past several years doubted EOS and many other companies in crypto as well, but today the market cap of EOS alone is an incredible $3.7 billion. In 2014, Brock co-founded the stablecoin Tether, which is the third largest cryptocurrency with a market cap of, get this, an astounding $62 billion. Tether is the number one most traded cryptocurrency with an annual trading volume of over $10 trillion. Incredible. Welcome, Brock. How are you?
Glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. Brock, I'm hoping today that we can get your perspective on the massive increase in inflation, along with the administration and the Federal Reserve's policies on taxes and regulations, and how that's going to impact the macro economy, specifically for the 30 million small businesses across America, as well as how changes in crypto and technology, such as blockchain, will enable many of those small businesses to find more efficiencies and what the future looks like for that. But right out of the gate, I'm sure a lot of our listeners saw the news. The announcement came out this morning that the DOJ announced that there is going to be a criminal probe into the early days of Tether. Executives from Tether are said to be facing criminal probe over whether they committed bank fraud, I believe. What is your reaction to all of this? And, what are you guys talking about behind the scenes right now?
Well, I mean, this is kind of a story that has gone on since the beginning. Tether has played a very important role for the cryptocurrency industry. It's largely responsible in many ways for the success of the sector. We needed a fiat or US dollar pair so that people could go long, short, and trade and easily move from exchange to exchange. And in the original model, from my perspective, because there were multiple of us that built this, I saw this as an opportunity to teach governments how technology can be used to enhance their central banks. And the Chinese government figured it out. Oh, they really figured it out. They've got the Chinese digital yuan that is basically launching right now to challenge the US dollar's reserve status in the world. And I'm so glad that Tether exists, because the only reason that the US dollar is not going to be threatened or challenged by the Chinese digital yuan is because of Tether. The private sector addressed this issue. We got in front of this, and I'm really happy about it. I spent a lot of time talking to members of Congress, Senate, House Financial Services Committee, civil servants, and making sure that we understand that if something bad were to happen to Tether, this could be catastrophic for the United States of America. If something were to happen to the US dollar's reserve status, we're talking about our economy collapsing by 90%. I mean, it's absolute catastrophe. And so for a very long time, people have continually said, tether this, tether this, tether that. And it's, as far as I can tell, for the most part wrong. Yes, they made some mistakes. So I was there at the beginning. I've not had any involvement for a very long time, but yeah, the disclosures, and they made mistakes, but nothing that I think warrants this. But Elizabeth Warren, I think, has really jumped in right now, and naturally, as a result of this becoming such an important conversation, it comes as no surprise that people would take yet again another look. But after the New York Attorney General went through everything and said, okay, there was nothing there, I'm kind of surprised that they would do another round.
There was a fine, I believe, that had to be paid by Tether to the New York AG, correct? There was like 18 million or whatever that was.
Yes.
Okay. What was that fine for specifically?
I do not know. I was not involved in any of it.
Okay. Okay.
But I mean, I've been involved in enough of these things that typically what happens is you end up in discussions, and when a government agency pursues you, even if they determine that you've done nothing wrong, they normally say, pay our expenses.
Yeah. Okay.
That's typically how it goes. And then you have one of two choices. You can say, no, never. And then, drag out the fight, and that works. But, normally at great expense, and ultimately you really cause potentially long-term harm. I mean, what for yourself? Normally you pay a small fine. It's like a parking ticket.
The criminal probe is referring to the early days of Tether, and today it's worth 62 billion. It's 10 trillion traded per year in valuation, the market cap, that is. But a lot of the concern that we've read about online and listened to for several years, as you've talked about, is essentially what and who is backing Tether. What is that backing come from? Is that commercial paper, and is that US based? Is that Chinese? What is that?
Well, I mean, again, when I was involved, the intention was it was always going to be backed. Every Tether would be backed by $1. And by the way, banks normally, for every dollar they have, they've got very little actual backing it up. So I mean, Tether is probably 50 times better than your average bank, just to be clear, if you understand how banking works. And so Tether is entirely backed. But what you do is when you sit on large amounts of capital, this is PayPal, Visa, MasterCard, any financial services business, when you sit on large amounts of capital, what you do is you loan that capital out. You buy bonds, treasury bills, these sorts of things with it, because you start to estimate how much money are you going to need access to. This is how every financial organization in the world functions. It's their business model.
Liquidity.
And that became Tether's business model as well. And it's probably the most backed, solid, maybe financial institution in the world. If you compared it to anything else, I would challenge anyone. I'll give you a Bitcoin if you can show me a traditional financial institution on Earth, traditional, not something new, that has better backing.
And that backing is from whom?
Well, I'm just talking about how much risk actually sits within those organizations. Typically, banks operate where. Remember, I've founded banks as well. I'm a bank founder. I understand how these businesses work in general. Tether, is one of the many things I put together over the years. That I start things and I move. All the time. But banks take $1 in deposit or $100 in deposit, and then they don't loan out $100. They loan out $1,000 based upon that $100. Tether takes in $100. And it will loan out in commercial paper and otherwise, less than $100, making it doesn't loan out more than it has. And for those that small business audience, this is right. I mean, is this that interesting? And again, I don't have any information. I've not been involved in Tether since.
Yeah. Okay. So you mentioned earlier that China is creating their own digital currency, and there's been discussions with the Fed that they may be creating their own USDC. digital currency as well. What do you believe the trajectory of that will do to the crypto markets if they do implement that, as well as what to other stable coins like Tether?
I mean, I think I've been beating on the drum for a long time with our government, our Treasury Department, our Federal Reserve, saying, you guys have to have a plan, and I'm glad that finally they're paying attention, because technology is changing the world. And America, as the capital of innovation, better not be asleep at the wheel. Our lives, our businesses, our institutions depend upon it. So I'm very happy that we're doing that. Now, the question is, what do they do? What is the implementation? Do they get it right? That's always the big concern. The Chinese have they know what their strategy is, and that is to take out the US dollar. And, it's hopefully we make the right decisions.
If there is a USDT or a USDC, I suppose, will that become the de facto cryptocurrency? Will that be traded on as opposed to using Tether or some of the others, do you believe?
Well, I mean, it depends on the implementation. If the US did what the Chinese have done, which is a system where the government has absolute control over all money, complete tracking on everything, no privacy, no liberty, no freedom, no principles that this country was founded upon.
Yeah.
If it has none of those things, the cryptocurrency community is not clearly going to use it. We believe in life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Like, we believe in the principles that America was founded upon. And so if it's a Chinese implementation strategy, then probably not so much. It all depends on what it is.
Yeah.
A USDC can be created many different ways. In its architecture, is it there to promote freedom? Is it there to promote, privacy or not? What is it there to do? Is it meant to be a system of control or a system of liberation? And that is in the design and how you design things.
Well, ultimately, if the Federal Reserve creates it, wouldn't that be, in essence, the exact opposite of what crypto was ultimately supposed to have been? And that's decentralized. The U.S. Treasury creating a cryptocurrency, a stable coin, if you will, is the ultimate centralized, isn't it?
I mean, again, these are more nuanced, I think, conversations. I mean, in terms of our governments and our central banks around the world that issue currencies, using technology to enhance those systems is something that I advocate for. Now, there are members of the cryptocurrency community that might see that as a very bad thing. I've been fighting for it for many, many years. I mean, that's why Tether was created, is to show governments they can do this. I mean, from my perspective as a founder, that was the original plan that was written, is this is a tool to educate governments how technology can address issues of financial inclusion and create a more equitable world. And our governments obviously have a very important role to play in it. And the government issued money has a very important role in our lives. Like it or not, it has a very important role. And that ain't changing anytime soon. So how can we make the world that we live in today a little bit better? And so technology, I believe, does that. And what is the currency that most of the world still wants? What's the most important currency in the world? The US dollar. If we can make the US dollar exportable so that people around the world can have easier access to it versus, a Chinese digital yuan, I think that's a very good thing. I just hope the right people are designing it correctly.
Do you have faith in, let me ask you from this perspective. We've seen a lot of signs that SEC and the regulators may want to start cracking down on certain crypto. If we take a look at some of the history in crypto, there's over 10,000 altcoins right now, pump and dumps, many of them. There are some great, investments out there, or coins and cryptocurrencies and tokens as well. But when we start to see that there are essentially rug pulls and many people are getting hurt, many of them are younger and unsophisticated investors, what regulations are necessary, do you believe, to separate the illegitimate from the legitimate, And is that going to would be a good thing ultimately, or do you believe otherwise, that the government shouldn't be involved at all?
Well, I mean, what is the role of regulators? Regulators are there in theory to protect the people.
Mm-hmm.
And from that perspective, I'm an advocate. That's what it's there for. Now, the question is, are you effectively regulating? Is this an industry that's regulated with plenty of laws already? I mean, we have too many laws as a nation already. I mean, the issue is the complexity of our legal system. There needs to be expiration dates, a whole lot of things. But yes, this is a highly regulated industry already. Most of those laws having been created before the invention of the internet. So it's kind of like you're living in a past world, but having to abide by rules that were created before technology existed. And updating our laws is probably a good thing. But again, the goal is sensible regulation.
Mm-hmm.
Not regulation that is created by incumbents trying to protect the status quo, that don't want society to move forward, that do not believe in making life better for others, that don't want to relinquish the powers that they have. The world changes, and it's always changing. And if regulation can stay sensible and work correctly with it, absolutely. But, let's protect the people. That's a good thing. The issue is you get the law of unintended consequences, and it doesn't always work out exactly as you want, which is why you got to be mindful and pay attention to the things that you do. And the decisions we make now will determine the fate of our nation. We are living through the fourth industrial revolution. If our regulators get this wrong, it's game over America. I mean, it's that big a deal.
Some will point to the reaction to the pandemic was massive stimulus spending. There's still massive stimulus proposals on the table right now, and that has inarguably led to massive inflation. Consumer pricing index numbers have gone through the roof. We're seeing it across the board, from real estate to food to energy, you name it. Everything is more expensive today. Two questions for you from that standpoint. Your reaction to more stimulus and the inflation and the reaction. And number two, do you believe that there is this is a temporary, or what the Federal Reserve is referring to as just a short-term blip in inflation, as opposed to what many are concerned about now as long-term?
Well, I mean, I do a lot more than what we've talked about. Airports, marinas, cruise ships, hotels. I'm in a lot of businesses. And one of the businesses I'm in is restaurants. And so we helped incubate and finance the fastest growing cloud kitchen company in Southern California. Mm-hmm. And we have so many job openings for like dishwashers and basic services. You can't hire someone for $26 an hour. No one wants to work. If you want to see the canary in the coal mine, if you want to see the early indicator of hyperinflation, it's when you can't hire labor. When labor prices double, I just say that's a very interesting piece of data from something we do. And that's the thing I would point out to people that are curious about what's really happening here. I agree with Larry Summers. I think we're in for very, very serious hyperinflation. I mean, that's what happens if you print money like there's no tomorrow.
Yeah,
is what we've been doing. It's going to do something. Every time you print another dollar, you are increasing the amount of dollars, diluting the value of all the prior dollars. And we are printing money at such a pace that the stock market's not actually up. It's the dollar that's down. It's an illusion of, what's actually happening here. I mean, as small business owners, or your business is all thriving. I mean, sure, if you're in janitorial services, some industries have benefited from this, pharmaceuticals for sure, right? But for most of us, this has been really, really tough. And on most businesses and industries, it's been really hard with, except for those categories in lockdowns that benefited, right? Why is it that we're seeing markets at all-time highs? Does that make any sense to you? Obviously not. It's the actual dollar is decreasing in value, which is everyone's putting their money into stocks because no one wants to hold paper anymore. That's what we're seeing right now. And as small business owners, I mean, you get it. And what I wish we saw more of is support of our small businesses. This is the backbone of America.
Yeah.
Now, I salute you, all of you building small businesses in this country, creating the jobs and doing it in a way that supports your local community. Like that is the heart and soul of, what gives me so much pride in capitalism in this country.
What is the impact ultimately on the small business or the macro small business economy when you do devalue the dollar? Everybody's spending more on goods and services. Everybody has to pay more for prices.
But that's not what's happening. There was this expectation that all this stimulus money was going to go out to the market and that it was going to be spent. It's being saved, which is a good thing. I'm glad to see that the American people are learning to save money. We've had this country has had a debt problem for a long time, but when your government has a debt problem and your biggest businesses have a debt problem, it should come as no surprise that the American people have a debt problem, right? We have a problem with debt in this country. And, so I'm glad to see that people are learning to save, that people are learning to understand markets, that people are learning to invest. This whole Reddit rebellion movement. I think it's fantastic.
The Wall Street bets you're referring to,
all of that. I think it's great. Power to the people kind of thing. It's like, and then you hear from like the Warren Buffett types, like, oh, this is horrible. The American people would be investing. It's like gambling. Wait, the American people are allowed to go to casinos where they get plied with alcohol and then actually play a game where the odds are forever against them. But we have a problem with the American people investing in the stock market. Like, no, I think that's a wonderful thing. Of course, some people are going to lose money in the beginning. That's the price of tuition. That's the price of entry. But what you're ultimately doing is you're giving them an education that enables them to potentially have financial freedom in their future. It's a really good thing. But unfortunately, the money didn't go to the small businesses as of yet. I mean, that's what the data, I think, will show. Yeah. I think we could have done a lot more for small businesses. And if you're going to print money like we're printing it, I just hope it doesn't end up in the typical pockets. I like, that Biden is pushing forward an infrastructure plan. If we're going to print money like there's no tomorrow, I hope that money goes into upgrading America's infrastructure.
Yeah, you actually want to see it, right? You want to touch it and feel it. They say that 90%
of high-speed rails, upgraded energy infrastructure. When you travel the rest of the world, and I'm always traveling, America is living in the 20th century, and how will America stay the capital of innovation if we're a generation behind everybody else? It's impossible.
How do you believe technology, specifically on the blockchain, will be utilized and can be utilized for the small business, for the big perspective on how they utilize software, whatever it may be, for efficiencies?
Yeah, so it's like, let's not take the phone apart and talk about every component, right? What the technology is doesn't necessarily matter so much unless you're building it. It's how is it used? How is it going to impact your life and your business? So in the United Arab Emirates or in Dubai, I think 2025, all government records have to be on blockchain. So as a record keeping tool set, because that's a government, by the way, government that basically was nothing 50 years ago. In 50 years, they've built one of the smartest futuristic cities in the world, like Singapore. Like, these are countries we should be watching closely and learning from. They're doing it right. I mean, from like the ashes out of nothing, like, wow, absolutely amazing. I mean, the most state-of-the-art everything. Really, really amazing places to visit for that reason. But record keeping is one. Votes and our voting system to ensure absolute certainty in the integrity of our elections. I mean, this is what this technology does. Financial services, payments. Right now, I'd say decentralized finance is the main thing. If you're a small business owner, I would say, think of government issued money. Your currency, right? Your currency is your current account. It's like your checking account. We use that as a medium of exchange. We use that to transact. Things like Bitcoin is more like your savings account. It's like digital gold. It's like gold 2.0. Not the money you spend. It's the thing you park, and you put it away for, a rainy day kind of thing. And that's the correct way to think about this stuff. This was the role that gold played historically. But gold is not performing, I think, as the markets will indicate. And what normally, how gold would have performed in this period, the reason why you're not seeing performance in gold is all of that capital has basically gone to cryptocurrency instead. That's literally the market dynamic that you're seeing right now, is because it's arguably a lot better. You can't send gold anywhere in the world instantaneously, right? You can't cut a piece off your gold nugget or coin and send it anywhere in the world instantaneously. You can counterfeit gold, all of these things. You can't do any of that with Bitcoin, for example. And so that's effectively what it is, to simply state it. But in terms of your small business, I don't think don't worry about it. Focus on getting your business up. Focus on keeping the jobs, taking care of your people, getting the right products. This is not like there are those of us out there that will bring this to you. It's not like something you need to. You should know about it from a personal perspective, And the way to begin your journey is go buy a $20, $100 worth of Bitcoin. I've never advised anyone to invest in this stuff. I'm encouraging you to invest in yourself and do a very small amount, something you can afford to lose. Assume you're going to lose it. So,
well, the volatility is inarguable, but at the same time, you're seeing massive numbers of people that have done very, very well.
$100. It's not about volatility.
Right.
What does it cost to go to Harvard? What does it cost to go do these things? I'm offering you an incredibly valuable education, and it'll take you 20 or 50 bucks.
Yeah.
Just go buy your first little bit to see how it works. And then go check out this thing called decentralized finance.
Yeah.
Then go put your US dollar, your Tether, or your Bitcoin, and put it into the market, a securitized market. You get 6 to 10% interest rates. Like the interest rates right now, this is why the smartest hedge funds in the world are all like doing this now. Mm-hmm. I mean, don't let anyone fool you. The biggest players on Wall Street are all doing this. Everybody is in right now. The only people that are not in are the small business owners and the average, person that hasn't been told.
Well, there's a significant number of people that are very dubious about crypto because of the FUD, the fear, uncertainty, and doubt that's been promulgated mostly by the media and short sellers as well. I'm sure there are whales out there that would benefit if it goes down to $5,000 again. But at the same time, more and more people that I'm speaking to on a daily basis are coming around to understanding the benefits of DeFi, as you're talking about, centralized DeFinance. Essentially understanding how that's going to be benefiting efficiencies of supply chains or human resources or whatever it may be. And when people start looking at it from that perspective, and the best argument, I'm sure you've heard it 1,000 times, is we are ostensibly right now in 1997, and we're learning about what this thing called eBay is, or this thing called Amazon is. And while there's going to be pets.com that go by the wayside, there are going to be some significant and profound winners that are out there. And this is where that money from gold is going, as you're referring to, correct?
Yeah, and your statement there is as accurate as I could say it. It's almost the same words that I use. Okay. And yeah, don't invest anything you can't afford to lose, and it's not a rush. There's the whole FOMO, fear of missing out. I'm a fan of the JOMO, the joy of missing out. Like, don't worry about it.
I like that one.
It's a long road. Yeah. And so, it's okay. Don't worry. But it's good to go learn, like 1997. There's this new stuff called email, and there's the eBay, and go check it out. This is real deal, change the world stuff happening right now.
Last question for you,
Real.
because I know you got to run, and I greatly appreciate you taking the time today, Brock. We're currently in a place right now. If you turn on the mainstream news, it's all about Delta variances and other variances that are spiking, not just in the United States, but globally as well. They're practically shutting down certain countries in Europe right now. We're seeing mask mandates now being implemented in Los Angeles, with a growing chorus in the media and in politics to do that now nationwide once again. What impact does that have on the economy if we go into some form of another lockdown?
I mean, for small businesses, for those that are not out of business, I mean, all I heard is, there's a vaccine, right? And this vaccine's coming out, and everyone's going to be vaccinated, and everybody gets to go back to life as normal, right? And I think most people have gotten a vaccine. Why would we need a mask and to lock down again? Unless there's an admission that the vaccine doesn't work or something. I mean, this doesn't make sense to me. I don't understand, the arguments and what and why. We're supposed to be the land of the free. People should be able to choose. If you're at risk and you don't want to go out of your home, like, go do that. What I don't understand is, does this mean we have to wear masks forever now? I don't get it. We were told, we were promised that things would be able to reopen and we'd be able to go back to living if we did these things. And so I'm not an expert at all. I just know I'm a confused American, because what I've been told is not happening. And the idea that we're supposed to lock down and shut down again, and that we have to be living in a constant state of fear. I'm not afraid, and more than anything, I worry for our small businesses. This has been an extraordinarily difficult year and a half for everyone that is keeping a business alive, and and for all those that failed. And there's no way, you don't just put the band back together again. And for anyone that's ever built a business, I have so much compassion. I don't have a good answer other than just to say, I feel for you. It breaks my heart to think about the struggle of like this. I know what it takes to build something, to keep something alive, and the responsibility to take care of your people and your customers and their health and their well-being. So I can't tell you other than it breaks my heart.
Brock Pierce, for somebody that funded over 100 companies, you've been right there on the front lines with small businesses and startups, and you've seen it firsthand. Greatly appreciate you taking the time. Tell everybody where they can find you and learn more about you and what you're currently doing, please.
BrockPierce.com, Twitter at Brock Pierce, Instagram, whatever. I'm all over the place. Or Brock.vote. That's not updated. I ran for president as an.
Yes, you did in 2020 as an independent, correct?
Yes, correct.
Yeah.
And so you can see some of my political views, but I'm a very proud American that cares deeply about this country and specifically our small businesses. I'm one of you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Brock. And I'd love to have you on again down the road and get caught up on everything that's happening. Best of luck to you. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brock. And I'd also like to thank you, the viewer, for watching as well. Hopefully you found that informative. Let us know what you think in the links below. Also, if you have any questions for us, whether or not Valcor can help you and your business with business restructuring, debt mediation, and capital acquisition, or for training as well, whereby you may be able to serve small businesses locally and become a licensee of Valcor. Greatly appreciate you taking the time. Find us at valcorworldwide.com as well as Valcor Worldwide on Twitter. Take care.